$1,364 per annum. This announcement is in compliance with Public Law 28-112, Recruitment Above Steps, Section 5, Transparency and Disclosure, Section 10. Now, should you require additional information, please contact the Human Resources Division of the Department of Public Works Recruitment Branch at 671-475-1128 or 1141. Thank you very much. Vincent P. Ariola, Director, DPW. 844. Let's turn it over to just right here where Isaiah Uggan, our education reporter from the KUAM News Team, is standing by with Superintendent Jon Fernandez. Good morning, Isaiah.
Good morning. Thank you, Chris. Good morning, Superintendent Fernandez. How are you?
Hi, good morning, Isaiah. I was, if I could, before we start, I mean, I'm just trying to remember what things were like before COVID-19, because for the past 2 years, we've been doing this weekly segment, but there was a time when I think we would only get calls that there was a fire, a police, break-in at a school or after a board meeting. And so, this weekly, this is have been our COVID weekly meetings, and I appreciate it. But I'm just thinking to myself, it wasn't too long ago where we knew each other before you even joined, the ranks of the media. So again, as long as it's useful to the community, we're here to give you updates and let you know what's going on. So, but again, this is I think for the community, getting these regular updates is something that wasn't always the case. So I hope we're ready to answer the question and keep you guys up to date with the latest in DOE.
Awesome. So speaking of updates, I wanted to get a status report on the 180 days in service learning hours requirement waiver. Have you guys heard back from the legislature yet?
Yes. So next week, I think we just got notice yesterday. I think next week on March 1st, there is going to be an informational briefing on the request, and also to discuss again related to those requests, discussing our plans to address learning recovery in DOE. So we're preparing for that for that informational briefing. I believe our work session on Thursday with the Curriculum and Instruction Committee will address some of those issues and with the board in preparation. But essentially, we sent a letter requesting that there be a waiver of two things. One is the service learning requirements that are needed to graduate. And right now, we have students who in high school who are freshmen and sophomores to whom that requirement applies, but they just haven't had an opportunity really to go out and get service learning credits or service learning hours. So they're, right now we're getting concerns that they're falling far behind, and we just want to make sure we even the playing field, for all of our high school students, knowing that we can't provide them those opportunities until we're kind of through this, through getting further through this pandemic. On the 180 instructional days, we're really going to have to clarify and I think really change the wording of the law, because as we review it, number one, the requirement is that Guam DOE provide 100 instructional days as part of a minimum of 100 instructional days every school year. Now, when we went to FESPAC, when FESPAC came to Guam, we had to actually shorten the school year. And so in order to shorten the school year, but still ensure that we had the instructional time, what we did is we lengthened the school days. I forget the details, but I know that we had to add time to the school days in order to make up for the number of days that we had to cut the school year short. So the language changed from 180 days or its equivalent. And so if you look at our school calendars now, it actually is 173 instructional days, but the hours were adjusted from when that law was first passed to account for that time that was lost. And what we do with those additional days is use them for professional development. Now, the legislature actually had amended that law and changed the days into, I believe it was instructional hours. And so we made an amendment and it changed it to instructional hours, so that in case you missed 2 or 3 hours, you didn't have to make up an entire day. You could make up those hours at a later time. But when we got the waiver early in the pandemic, the language changed from hours to days. So it's getting a little more, I think, confusing if you're looking and trying to track this requirement. And I think when we meet on March 1st with the committee, we're going to really ask that the language be clear and take into account not just what we think is important in terms of instructional hours and instructional time needed, but if we're going to go forward with online learning, remember that online learning, the best practices don't mean the best practices don't include being online 8 hours a day. It really takes into consideration synchronous time online and asynchronous work where you do work but on your own time before your online class. So I think there's a lot that needs to be clarified, and we're going to go to the informational briefing to work that out with the legislature.
Okay, thank you. And so Public Health was talking or mentioning that they're still waiting on the I guess you guys to fix the discrepancies in regards to the student PEBT. What's the latest in regards to that?
Right. So there were some, again, I think I mentioned last week, but we were aware of minor discrepancies that needed to be addressed, and our staff was addressing those corrections and those confirmations of the information that so make sure it's accurate. Staff has informed me that they completed that last week and submitted it to Public Health, and that at the staff level, at least, Public Health has indicated that they're going to be moving forward with that list to their vendor to begin the processing. So I hope that I'll check in at a higher level, but my staff informs me that from their level, they understand that Public Health is now able to move forward. So hopefully that means that these PEBT cards will be loaded with that with the additional amount from this past summer.
That's good news for those who are waiting for that. Do you happen to have the amount of number of students who were enrolled into the summer school program for 2021?
It's not. I don't believe it's the summer school program numbers. It's a matter of who was enrolled in school during the time period that's encompassed, because every student who was eligible for PEBT will be able to avail themselves of that additional funding. It's just a matter of students coming and leaving during the school year or enrolling in summer school, but it's just a matter of clarifying the records and ensuring that we have an accurate list. But it should encompass everyone who was going to school that school year, which would have been 21 to 22, including the summer, and making sure that master list is correct. So after we deal with the summer, we're going to be looking at whether there will be additional PEBT assistance for this school year because of the interruption earlier in the school year, and that'll take into account those who were enrolled from the 22 to 23. I'm sorry, I meant 2021 and 21-22 school year. So we dealt with the prior school year. This is a chance to deal with the summer, which is still considered part of that prior school year. And then once we take care of the summer, we're going to look and take into account whether PEBT assistance will be available for this school year, which is 21-22, because of the interruptions we saw, back in September. So there should be some further assistance available from that period of time as well.
Okay, so I'm trying to just clarify, because Public Health says this is only for students who were enrolled into the summer school program. So you're saying those who were enrolled in school year 2020 to 2021 will be getting this additional funding?
Yeah. Well, let me go back and clarify that. But my understanding was the master list we were looking at was for the entire school year. So I'll have to go and verify if that's not the case. But at any rate, I've got the staff has taken the master list and worked with Public Health so that all who are eligible will be notified once the list is correct and is moving it forward for processing. So let me get back to you on that one later today.
Thank you. And what's the latest? Excuse me, I'm just still waking up. What is the latest in the regards to the $9 million budget shortfall? Is GDOE, what's the latest in regards to that?
Okay, so with regard to budget shortfalls, and you're tracking it correctly, but in terms of how we deal with the budget shortfall, what we did at the beginning of the year is we looked at the resources we had and the plans that we had for spending, and we said, look, there's not enough resources. So we have to figure out a strategy to align our resources and our spending so that we have a balanced budget at the end of the year. So what we did to address that was, of course, move to shift a lot of these expenses to federal money where possible, and that left us with a $9 million gap. So that $9 million gap is something that we're having to manage, month to month. So what that's meant is that we're tracking to ensure that we are not spending more than we are receiving, and that's limiting us in terms of the type of hiring we're doing, the type of spending that we have to forego. So it's not a matter of finding additional money to put in. We weren't able to find additional money. Now it's managing like you manage your checkbook. We don't have $9 million, so where do we cut back? And so right now, a lot of that cutting back is just when we get to the budget discussion, we're going to talk about that. Our inability to fill some of our vacant positions. A lot of that is actually taking place at the central office, because when there's a vacancy at the school level, we try to fill that as much as possible. But as vacancies arise at the central office, that's where we're kind of holding back and trying to ensure that we are able to conduct our operations, but we don't have the luxury of hiring all those positions. And what that means is that staff are taking on extra load, and we're seeing a lot of wear and tear on the central office. But frankly, we have to wait until we get further into the fiscal year to ensure whether we have the resources to pick up those additional positions. So right now we have a vacant facilities and maintenance manager position. We have people acting in place, but we have a vacant safety administrator. We have a vacant, capital improvements project. So there are vacancies that we have people who are in acting capacities, but when it comes to filling them permanently, we have to be very careful and prioritize. So some of those positions will move forward, but there are many positions that will just have to wait until we manage and ensure that we have enough resources to support those hires.
Okay. And I guess my final question is, what is the latest in regards to mandating summer schools? I know there was like around 3,000 students that would be required if I guess the Guam Education Board decided that they would require summer school.
So yeah, we've been talking about. Obviously, summer school is part of our learning recovery strategy. Just as night school, as MUJA, credit recovery. There are a lot of ways. There are a lot of programs in place that we're looking to expand, to ensure that more students have an opportunity to take advantage. So the difference was whether we could mandate, summer school for students, especially those students who need summer school in order to catch up in terms of their academic performance. The issue with mandating it is that because of the funds that we're using and what we're doing basically is blending funds from the COVID-19 relief with funds that we normally get through a consolidated grant. And in our consolidated grant, which normally funds summer school, we're not able to normally use federal funds where there are local mandates, to provide those services. So we really had to clear it up with US GDOE to ensure that if we put a mandate in place for certain students to attend summer school, that we wouldn't be penalized and not be able to use federal funds. So what it looks like, the latest information that I received is that it is possible to mandate, certain students to attend. And I think we'll be discussing this again at our work session on Thursday to determine, how to proceed. Obviously, if you mandate students to attend, there has to be some kind of consequence, right?
Yeah.
You're mandated, you're required. What if you do not attend? What is the penalty or consequence that student will face if they choose not to show up? So those are the kinds of things. I think we got the go ahead to think of, to go forward with a mandate and figure out how to tailor that so that it makes sense for our students. But we also have to think about, okay, what happens then if we put a mandate in place? Does that mean you won't move to the next grade? Does that mean you don't get to graduate on time? I don't know. We have to go through that discussion, and I think we're ready to have that discussion later this week.
Okay, one more question briefly, if you could answer this. Have you guys responded to the FOIA request that Senator Sabina Perez sent to your office a couple of weeks ago?
It was a couple of weeks ago, and, and based on the FOIA law, because of what she's requested, which goes back a couple of years,
into 2019,
we were able to get an extension,
okay,
so that we could go through all the documents. So I think I think it's due either Friday or Monday is due to the senator. So we're of course we're on track to meet that requirement. Our legal team handles all of our FOIA requests to make sure we comply with the law. But that's just one aspect. I know that you had other questions about other procurements that are ongoing. So a couple of them. We do have we have seen several protests recently dismissed. At the OPA level. So one of the critical ones, of course, was HEPA filters. So we were able to get it dismissed at the OPA level, but until the time frame for appeals to the court expires, which I think is this week, we aren't able to move forward. But if we get through this week and vendors don't file an appeal in court, then we'll be able to proceed with that procurement. So that's HEPA filters. The MiFi's devices, we had an early protest back in November that we denied in December, and then we moved forward in that process to award the MiFi's, and then we received another protest. So that protest is actually at the agency level, which is with us to respond to, and we expect to respond to that shortly. And if the vendor then decides to appeal that to OPA, then that appeal will then go to OPA to be addressed. So it is troubling to see these processes drawn out. I mean, I completely understand vendors who want to exercise their rights and who believe that there are issues with the procurement, but I think we've had a pretty good record of demonstrating that our procurements are handled appropriately. It's just that it takes extra time to get these services out to students and to schools when a protest takes place, and you have to go through the OPA, and not only through the OPA, but have to wait until the appeals window is exhausted with the courts before you can proceed. But again, that window is this week, and if we're able to move forward after that, we certainly look forward to getting those HEPA filters, to all of our classrooms.
Thank you, Superintendent Fernandez, for
Thank you, Isaiah.
giving us an update.
Thank you, John.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. 901. Good job, Isaiah.
Thank you.
All right. Isaiah Uggan of the KUAM news team. He covers education for the news team. Is 901. We're KUAM FM, Agotni, Guam, right here on the breeze. Quick break, and we're back to wrap up the show with Burger King's Cover Me next on the link. Good morning.
Watch Mariana's artists, activists, and visionaries and their quest to protect, preserve, and promote our Chamorro culture on the Culture Club, a weekly feature on KUAM News digital platform and the KUAM News Weekend Edition. Brought to you by Hanam, the freshest bottled water made in Guam. KUAM Communication is your home for star-studded entertainment from America's top networks. From specials, concerts, award shows, and can't-miss red carpet moments. It's all on KUAM TV 8 and KUAM TV 11. Check KUAM.com